knock up the revs to 2200, get the PTO running at just 1000 RPM, and like that we're off. We're making 2 beds at a time, which will plant 4 drills of potatoes. And the basic idea is I have to follow these 2 lines on my pre-emerge or my marker line, which is guiding me my correct width to make sure that in the mirror my disc is cutting just alongside where the previous line was, to make sure our beds are accurate and exactly the same width each time. Oh, it's raining. You can see the difference in the blades there, the new ones and the old ones. The concept, however, is very good. Like one single pin, the bolt or the blade is locked in there, it's not going anywhere. Pressure's on the frame of the rotor rather than on the pin. It's just simply flange nut underneath, but you'd expect it to be good considering these blades are £39 each, and the tungsten edge that's on these here is probably what makes them expensive, but that's what helps with the wear. The only issue with those is if you hit that with something really hard, like a bit of rock, and chip that off, the blade is effectively goosed, because without that there's nothing hard about the blade for wearing. But good job, just rather expensive to replace the set. Given the fact that I had to turn this blade around, having it on the wrong way, that's just finished me for the night. I've had enough. We'll come back in the morning. But we've got so many of them swapped over there this evening. Just a couple of rows at the top to do on this side. We'll be back tomorrow. Those are like really big, sleety, snowy drops just coming sideways out of nowhere. Let's hope that doesn't last too long. It's not one of the easiest fields to drill. It lies 3 different directions. It makes it hard to get a good drill, but I think we've done a pretty good job here. The drills are full on the top side as well as the bottom side, and it's always nice and pleasing to see a tidy job like that in an awkward situation. It gives you a bit of job satisfaction. As you can see, conditions are pretty much perfect for planting potatoes. The soil is the time to dry out nicely with the good weather we've had. The weather has turned colder and dull now, but it's still dry and there's a sharp wind there, so the drills are drying out nicely. So as you can see, it looks a wee bit strange we're overlapping this bed, but what we're really doing is leaving a wee extra ridge there, stepping this next bed that the sprayer will drive up wider than normal, and that allows our 600 VF tires to run smoothly down between those 2 beds, not compact the potatoes, not touch the drills, and especially in wet weather allows us to float better on top of the ground. This also means then that whenever we come to put in our next crop of wheat, those tram lines aren't compacted, sunk, rutted, and cause an issue then to try and get the field back into shape for the following crop. So we'll have to do the same, go back up the other side, step the next one. We no longer use narrow wheels whenever we're spraying the potatoes to try and help avoid soil compaction, and in wet weather then it just really does help protect the drills around the tires. basically this hose for the width marker got hit by that stone and come out of this red socket. It just broke the end off the fitting, and we've been left with needing to replace the hose. When Muggins here went to pull the hose and sort it out, I've got covered in oil. But at least we have got 2 markers down, both operational. Just have to leave them down till we get this field finished. If we need to lift one up, we can lift the far side up and work from that. We'll get back at it again. Fairly nicely at nearly 1 miles per hour. But you can also see the computer's telling me that we're using just over 10 gallons of diesel per hour, or 9 gallons of diesel per acre. So we're doing just over an acre per hour. So every hour of the day we can manage to plant 1 acre of potatoes. If I scroll through here on my computer, oh, went one too far. I have my settings set that when I lift my hydraulic arms, it's turned on, PTO will turn off, and the revs of the tractor will drop, and this will allow us to turn around safely without damaging any of the machine. Really handy, nifty wee feature. It's a basic form of headland management. Knock our PTO into 1000, hit the button to turn it on. Just going to show you here how our tram line work out after they're planted. So as you can see, we've left that wee bit of extra width that we can drive down with the sprayer. In theory, the sprayer wheels will go down these 2 tracks, which actually keeps them up off the dip in the soil on either side, so they're sitting in higher, drier ground. Those ridges will level down a wee bit with the big tires, but it allows us to travel through the field with a sprayer to protect the potatoes from blight without damaging those drills, without creating ruts in the wet weather. And then when we go to put our follow-on crop in, we don't have compaction and sinking and ruts where there's water lying. So it's just long term a lot better for the field. And actually, because these 2 drills don't get touched by the sprayer wheels, the crop of potatoes in them is good. Whereas many a year, the drills around the sprayer wheels were always poorer because they ended up with compaction, or they get pushed, or the tops get damaged. But they don't take the same damage here when we leave that wee bit extra space. So it's very handy done when you're working with the tiller. I'm just going to swap over a couple of hydraulic hoses. You can really do with 5 full valve banks on this machine. Technically green is for my front linkage and red is for my stone fork tilt, but we have to get the machine unfolded first, then hydraulic rams folded down, take it out of transport mode. So we'll swap over, put the marker arms down, and then that'll allow us to get our hydraulics working. Something satisfying whenever you get the field all planted and the headlands all squared off nicely, and it just looks so neat and tidy, and makes life so much easier as the season goes on. Then whenever you're in with the sprayer, nice smooth level driving conditions. A few spits of rain coming on the window there, and actually now that we've the potatoes planted, their spring wheat's all planted as well, we'd be quite happy to see an evening's rain or a day's rain. It would do good. Ground is pretty dry, there's quite a bit of moisture underneath, but it's dried out quite hard on top, and our winter crops and crops of grass and stuff would just benefit from a wee drop of rain. I have to say, all the same, it's been one of the easiest springs for planting potatoes. Now we just had to be patient and wait for the weather to come right, but at the moment it's worked for us. We've got the potatoes all in. A lot of people are only actually starting. We like to get them in quite early down here in this part of the world, because if we leave it too late and it dries out too much, we could lose our moisture. So we've still got plenty of moisture in the drills there. We've got them in nice condition. Let's hope the wee bit of heat comes now and then it can explode. Get them up out of the ground. I think the last time we planted potatoes as easily as this, and it was in as good a conditions, was 2012. So that's quite a few years ago. The problem then was the months of June, July and August were extremely wet. So we're not looking for that this year. So it's 2 or 3 days later, we've got the potato headlands all levelled out nicely. We've had a shower of rain there about an hour ago, which is making conditions good, and we're now just in sealing the soil for weeds. This will prevent any weeds coming up through, but allow the potatoes to come up through unharmed, and just keep the weeds down. So you can see here we're driving up the drills the correct width, but we're kind of driving on 2 odd-sized drills. There's no potatoes in those. That's the ones we talked about marking out to allow the wheels to drive on, so that we don't damage the drills. And when we get to the end, then it'll be fit to show you the wheelie marks up those 2 lines. So that's my 600 tires, which are low ground pressure, and this is how they went up the 2 drills. So you can see here how the wheel has run on the ridge, hasn't touched either of the drills, and it's left me with a nice run up the field with no damage. It also means that when I'm running on this ridge, if it does rain quite a bit, the water's going to be in those 2 gullies, and this is going to be the drier bit of land, and hopefully do less damage. It worked really well last year, so that's why we're doing it again this year. But yeah, you can just see that the sun's sort of hindering it. How the wheel has run nicely between the 2. So we're applying this herbicide to keep the weeds down at 600 litres to the hectare. But 599 of those litres is just water. Pure water. There's only 1 litre of chemical going on per hectare. And a hectare is 2.5 acres more or less. So for every 2.5 acres there's only 1 litre of chemical. So the amount of chemical being used is actually really small. Say the carrier is water, which is 599 of those litres that's being applied is just water. The tillerstar doesn't have any GPS when we're making our drills, but this has worked out very nicely at the 30 metres. You can just see we're very nearly missing there. We're right on the limit, so we're not wasting any overlaps or anything like that. You can also see here on the GPS screen how the very centre section, which is the bit that's covering the nice smooth bit with the sprayer drives, is not turned on, because we don't want to put any chemical down there to hinder the growth of the wildflowers and the cover crop, which we'll come along and sow here now afterwards. We'll sow it in there, roll it in, and then that'll provide cover over that soil to protect it from the wind and rain, and also provide food for the wildlife and the insects and the birds. Potatoes all sealed up to keep the weeds out. Planting all finished. So that's one more job ticked off the list for spring. So this is just a wee hopper with the mix of yellow and white clover and wildflower seeds. Should hopefully all germinate nicely. These corners where machinery can't operate to plant the potatoes or harvest them, and these headland strips which we need for turning and travelling with the sprayer throughout the summer. You can see the wheels where the sprayer travels. So those bits in between won't be touched all summer, and it's an ideal space for the wildflowers and clover etc. to grow and provide good cover over that soil, protect it, and provide the flowers for the insects and stuff. And then the clover will fix a bit of nitrogen and hopefully help benefit that bit of soil rather than hinder it. We're using the basic approach today as well. Rather than trying to get big machinery around the field with the sower and put, burn unnecessary diesel in many ways. And it is awkward to get into the field corners. We're doing it manually just with the wee push behind sower. It's actually easier to pull it than it is push it, mind you, but so you can see what I'm doing, we're just pushing it here. So we're just going along the headlands, the potato drills, and spreading out the clover seeds that are mixed in with wildflowers. You can see where I've been there. We'll just come round and do one loop right round the headland with the big flat land roller that you would roll the grass fields with, and that'll just knit the seeds down in, because if we disturb the soil too much, the seeds will end up buried too deep because they're such small seeds. Let's see if we can find any down here. Yeah, look, you can just see the wee seeds on the ground there. So we'll just push them down in with the roller, and hopefully they'll get up and away now that nice damp conditions there from last night's rain. To structure this soil, cover it from the wind and the rain and the sun, or otherwise it would sit bare all summer. So we're just going to work our way around the outsides, and we'll work into the corners of the fields a wee bit as well, and do these squares so that they aren't bare either.